So we go directly to some of the interesting conversations that we'll be having with NEMA. Everybody wants to hear from NEMA, right? So, Dr. Ayub, in the implementation of EPR, could you expound, first of all, what is EPR? And then guide us on the implementation, what are the challenges that we are happening, and guide us through that.
EPR is a concept where producers are mandated to, or they are given obligations to make sure that they take care of their products. They maintain the responsibility for their products from production to end of life. And that is what Kenya has proposed. We proposed it in the Sustainable Waste Management Act. The journey in Kenya is a bit unique because it is the private sector that demanded for EPR. When they realized that the government had a high appetite to ban some synthetics, starting with the polythene bags. We wanted to ban other things, but the private sector said, this is a waste management issue. It is not that the product is bad. And so they requested the government to just make sure that everybody is on board and they are ready to take responsibility to manage their products up to their end of life.
One of the key issues, and which was mentioned in the first panel, is to do with data and statistics, which is quite important. And it's very important for businesses to be able to, put their action plans in place, be able to know what's the baseline for Kenya in terms of e-waste in the country. And from the data that we are seeing within the private sector and from the businesses, is that a lot of e-waste in Kenya is largely importation. We do have capacity of local, manufacturers and assemblers who are producing here in Kenya, but largely quite a small number of assemblers. For instance, in the mobile phones, we have now about 2 companies who are here who are assembling mobile phones. So you can imagine the rest of the other products in the market are actually imported products. And the regulation of that entire system needs to work, because currently the EPR implementation is really focused on local manufacturers who you can find here, and you're able to get them to comply with the EPR requirements in the country. So data is quite important, statistics, and especially from the government at the national level. We hope that this is one of the things that NEMA can prioritize to help us coordinate with the county government so that we can have a baseline as a country for the EPR schemes and the PROs who've now brought together businesses and companies as part of the collective scheme. They are able to know that this is what we are targeting. And interestingly is that our e-waste strategy is coming to an end this year, and I think it was targeting zero e-waste. And I'm sure through this forum we'll be able to now start taking stock of what we had actually put as strategies as a country to address some of these, the challenges we're having with e-waste. So data is quite important. Once businesses are able to get data, they're able to move. Secondly, it's the issue to do with policy coherence. It's quite amazing to hear that the EPR regulations are about to come out, and congratulations to NEMA, who are one of our partners and who've continued to make sure they accelerate the process through engaging the ministry. We now hope that that will provide some direction. As you know, the provisions on EPR are about a few sentences saying that there's a mandatory requirement to implement EPR. You can imagine what that scope means for businesses. And for businesses, for them to be able to operate well, they need to have quite clear policies. And once you put your policy, you put your laws in place, you put some guidelines in place, businesses are able to comply, especially the smaller companies.
The first thing, I'm very happy that EPR is going to be implemented in Kenya, and hopefully it will cascade across the region, because then it holds us accountable for what we bring and managing it from a producer to close the loop all the way to the consumer. So the first thing is we are trying to also, if I look from a global perspective, it's multi-stakeholder collaboration, right? So there needs to be a holistic approach and a distribution of responsibilities so that everyone knows what the common, and I think it was one of the speakers before, what the common exchange factors are, what do we need to do? Otherwise, if we are not brought to the table, especially as tech firms, and laws are put into place, then it becomes difficult to come and implement and try and adhere. And this brings me to my next point, which becomes transparency and clear price signals to both the producers and consumers. Because what will then consequently happen is when the EPR comes in, let's say mandatory take-back programs are included, what will happen is the cost will then be passed on to the consumer, right? Things will become expensive, and you don't know why this tech is that expensive or what the reasoning behind that is. So transparency and clear price signals to manage that supply chain. I would say take back and infrastructure mechanisms are currently missing in this region. That is why we need to encourage that. The other bit is controlling and avoidance of waste trafficking, which is key for transition. As you put these laws into place, please take into account the informal sector, what happens, and make sure that the back doors are closed. And to sum up, these policies are great, but we need investment in innovation, in technology, education, the financial tools, and the government policies.
The Sustainable Waste Management Act requires NEMA to develop the National Information Management System. And for EPR, you see we need data at several levels. We need data so that you can be able to be, that data will be used to calculate your extended producer responsibility fees so that your product can be managed even up to end of life. And so to us, data is so important because part of the money that the PROs collect will come to NEMA to help us in control audit, to help us with monitoring. And so we are very keen on data. Every producer has to declare what you bring into the market, and we have to corroborate that with the data that is available with other agencies, including the tax, how much tax you paid for what. And so we are working with other agencies to make sure that we have accurate data in the market because it is part of our revenue stream as an organization to help us with the monitoring and control audits. Thank you.